My wife, Mary, and I recently celebrated our 60th wedding anniversary. 60 years. That's 21,900 days of waking up next to the same person. When people see us walking in the park, holding hands with our wrinkled fingers interlaced, they usually say the same thing. They say, "Oh, you guys are so lucky. You must have the perfect marriage." I usually just smile and nod, but inside, I'm laughing, because perfect is the last word I would ever use to describe our journey. Luck had very little to do with it. To be honest, there were at least 5 or 6 times over the last 6 decades where we almost didn't make it. There were nights where the silence in our house was so heavy you could feel it in your bones. There were moments where the suitcase was packed and the door was halfway open. The only reason I'm standing here today, still wearing this gold band, is because we eventually learned how to stop making the mistakes that were killing us. I'm 82 years old now, and I want to share this with you because I see so many young couples throwing away something beautiful because they fall into the same traps we did. The first mistake, the one that almost destroyed us in our first 10 years, was keeping a scorecard. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that mental ledger we all keep in the back of our heads. I washed the dishes 3 times this week. She only did it once. I stayed up late with the crying baby. He got to sleep. I was the one who remembered the anniversary. She forgot. We treat our marriage like a business transaction, a constant game of who owes who. For years, I was a master at this. I remembered every mistake Mary made, every time she was late, every time she didn't support me the way I wanted. And I used those things as weapons. Whenever we had an argument, I didn't just argue about the problem at hand. I brought out the entire scorecard from 1974. What I didn't realize back then was that when you keep a scorecard in a marriage, even if you win the argument, the relationship loses. You can't be a team if you're constantly trying to prove that you're the better partner. Marriage isn't 50-50. That's the biggest lie they tell you. Marriage is 100-0. Sometimes it's you giving 100 and getting nothing back because your partner is struggling, sick, or lost. And sometimes it's them carrying you. If you're counting points, you're not loving your auditing. The second mistake followed right after the first. Silence as a weapon. We used to call it the silent treatment. I thought it was a way to avoid fighting. I'd get angry, shut down, and refuse to speak for 2 days. I thought I was being the bigger person by not shouting. But silence isn't peace. It's a slow-growing cancer. Silence builds walls, and once those walls get high enough, you realize you don't even know the person on the other side anymore. Mary and I spent months living like roommates in a museum, quiet, careful, and completely disconnected. We were surviving, but we weren't married. We had to learn, and it was painful, that a loud, messy, honest argument is 1,000 times healthier than a quiet, polite lie. You have to be willing to be ugly with each other to get to the truth. If you stop talking because you're afraid of the conflict, you've already lost the battle. If you can move past the scorecard and the silence, you run straight into the third mistake. And this one is subtle. It's the arrogance of the project mentality. When Mary and I got married, I fell in love with exactly who she was. But about 6 months in, I started looking at her like a fixer-upper house. I thought, she's great, but if I could just make her a little more organized, if I could just change the way she handles money, if I could just make her more like me, then we'd be perfect. I spent nearly 20 years trying to edit my wife. I thought I was being helpful. I thought I was coaching her to be her best self. But the truth is, I was being a tyrant. I was sending her a message every single day that said, "You aren't enough as you are." Do you know what happens when you try to change the person you love? You kill the very thing that made you fall in love with them in the first place. You fall in love with a wildflower, and then you spend your life trying to turn it into a rose, because roses are easier to manage. Eventually, the flower just withers. Mary fought back for a long time, and then she just got tired. She started becoming the person I wanted her to be, but she lost her spark. She stopped laughing at the things she used to find funny. She became a shadow, and standing there at year 25, I realized I had won. I had changed her, and I was miserable. Because I wasn't married to Mary anymore, I was married to a version of myself in a dress. We had to have a very raw, very painful conversation where I had to admit that my help was actually a form of control. Marriage isn't about finding a partner you can change. It's about being the partner who is willing to be changed by the relationship. I had to learn to love her flaws, not tolerate them, but actually love them, because those flaws were the price of admission for her heart. And that leads me to the fourth mistake, which is almost the opposite, but just as deadly: losing the I in the we. In the middle years, when we were raising kids and building careers, we made the mistake of thinking that togetherness meant being identical. We did everything together. We shared all the same hobbies. We had the same friends. If I wanted to go fishing, Mary came along even though she hated the smell of bait. If she wanted to go to an art gallery, I went and complained the whole time about my feet hurting. We thought this was what devotion looked like. We thought we were becoming one soul. But you see, if two people become exactly the same, one of them is unnecessary. I stopped playing the guitar because it took time away from us. Mary stopped painting because I didn't understand her art. We merged into this one big, boring entity, and the resentment started to rot us from the inside out. We were suffocating each other. It took a wise old friend to tell us, a marriage is like two trees planted side by side. If they grow too close together, their branches tangle and they block each other's sunlight. They both end up stunted. But if they have their own space to grow, their roots can intertwine underground and they can withstand any storm. We had to learn how to be individuals again. I had to encourage her to go away for a weekend with her friends, and she had to tell me to go sit in my wood shop and get out of her hair. We had to rediscover who we were as people, not just as mum and dad or the couple. Ironically, the more we allowed each other to be independent, the more we wanted to be together. The space between us gave us something to talk about at dinner. It gave us a reason to be curious about each other again. Don't lose yourself trying to be a perfect couple. A strong we is built by two healthy I's. If you give up everything you love just to keep the peace, you'll eventually find yourself in a very quiet, very lonely house, wondering where your life went. That brings me to the fifth mistake, and perhaps the most dangerous one in our modern world: believing that love is just a feeling. When Mary and I were 22, love felt like lightning. It was all butterflies, racing hearts, and the feeling that we couldn't breathe without each other. We thought that was it. We thought that high, that rush, was the fuel that would power us for the rest of our lives. But here is the truth that no one tells you at the wedding. The butterflies eventually die. The lightning doesn't strike every day. There will be seasons, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, maybe even years, where you don't feel in love. There will be mornings where you wake up, look at the person snoring next to you, and you don't feel a single spark. You might even feel annoyed, or bored, or completely indifferent. In our 42nds, we hit a very dry season. Life was heavy mortgages, career stress, the exhaustion of raising teenagers. We looked at each other and realized the feeling was gone, and we made the mistake of thinking that meant the marriage was over. We thought we had fallen out of love. But at 82, I've realized that love isn't a feeling you have. It's a decision you make. It's a verb. Feelings are like the weather, they change every day. They are unreliable. If you build your house on the weather, it will fall. But commitment is the rock. We had to learn that on the days when we didn't feel love, that was exactly when we had to do love. You choose to be kind when you're tired. You choose to listen when you're bored. You choose to stay when it's easier to walk away. I remember a night about 15 years ago. Mary was very ill, and I was sitting by her hospital bed. She didn't look like the girl I married. She was frail, her hair was thin, and she was scared. I didn't feel butterflies that night. I felt a deep, heavy, soul-shaking devotion that was 1,000 times more powerful than romance. I realized that the feeling of love is just the blossom, but the decision of love is the root. You can't have the harvest without the roots. Looking back over 60 years, I see that our marriage wasn't one long story. It was 1,000 different marriages. I've been married to the young, vibrant girl, the tired, overwhelmed mother, the ambitious career woman, and now the beautiful, wise grandmother. And she has had to be married to all the different versions of me, including the arrogant, scorecard-keeping man I used to be. The secret to 60 years isn't that we never made mistakes. It's that we never made the same mistake so long that it became our identity. We learned to apologize, truly apologize. Not, "I'm sorry you feel that way, but I was wrong. I hurt you. Please forgive me." Those are the 8 words that saved us more times than I can count. So, if you're listening to this and you're struggling, if you're keeping a scorecard, or using silence as a weapon, or trying to change your partner, or losing yourself, or waiting for a feeling to return, I want you to stop. Take a deep breath. Look at the person you chose. Understand that you are currently in the work phase of the garden. It's dirty, it's hard, and nothing seems to be blooming. But don't walk away. Don't waste your years chasing a new garden just because this one has weeds. Pull the weeds together. Water the ground with honesty. Because I promise you, if you do the work, you get to reach the stage we're at now. You get to reach the harvest. There is nothing in this world, no career success, no amount of money, no fleeting romance, that compares to the peace of sitting on a porch at 82 years old, knowing that the person next to you knows every single one of your flaws, every mistake you've ever made, and they still choose to hold your hand. 60 years didn't destroy us, it made us. We survived the fire, and what's left is the gold. Thank you for listening to An Old Man's Heart. I hope you choose love today, not just feel it, but choose it. It's the only thing that lasts. Take care of each other, and I'll see you in the next one.